Welcome to the Freedom from Anger podcast. I hope everybody's having a Merry Christmas. Posting this Christmas night because the last podcast, I'm pretty sure I promised I would have something by Christmas. So I'm definitely cutting it a little short here, but yeah, it's almost 6 p.m. here in Nashville, Tennessee on Christmas night. Hope everybody has had a great Christmas thus far. And I know when I was growing up, we did everything on Christmas Eve at my parents' house, and I know it would last until, after midnight. So just all day, eat breakfast, hang out with family all day, eat. Definitely need to take a break from all the eating, but it's been good. It's been good. Anyways, this is a great podcast. I enjoy talking to Mr. Kyle Smith. He hails from Edmonton. That's it. Alberta. Yeah, Edmonton, Alberta. Way up there in Canada land. And I looked, and today it's about 14 degrees, but come Tuesday, the low is -4. So a vast difference from the 60-something degrees here in Nashville on Christmas. But anyways, well, I hope you enjoy this podcast, this recording. As always, if you need anything from me, just hit me up on our website, freedomanger.com. If you have any suggestions on who you'd like to be on podcast, or maybe you need some help with some behavioral health issues, some anger management or alcohol and drug stuff, pretty much the website's kind of one-stop shop. If you got any questions, just email me directly. I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. We also do free anger/stress assessment. Also do free consultations, and we'd be more than happy to work with you. So with that being said, I'll quit rambling and let you get to listen to this podcast, and hope everybody has a happy and safe Christmas. And if I don't get back to you before New Year's, please be safe for New Year's. But I've got a recording recorded. I just need to sit down and edit it. This one that I'm posting now, I just kind of let AI do its thing. So hopefully should be posted. Shoot for about 6:30. Takes me a minute to get everything posted. Anyways, all right. Well, enjoy the rest of your Christmas, and as always, stay safe. Welcome to the Freedom from Anger podcast. I'm joined today with Kyle Smith. He is a clarity consultant and developer of Neuro-Linguistic Somatic Experience. He is going to explain to us what exactly NLSE is all about. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing pretty good, dude. How about yourself?
I'm very excited. We talked probably like a month ago about doing this. Now it's vastly approaching Christmas, but that's all right. I'll try to get it out as soon as I can. So tell us a little bit about the Neurosomatic Linguistic Experience.
Well, in short, it is a mindset gym for mental fitness. I say mental fitness rather than mental health because I think it only has one side of the coin. It points the focus towards health rather than allowing us to reflect on what's making us unhealthy. If we address those first, then the healthy things come easier. I put fitness because fitness is higher. It's figuring out where you want to go. I do the same thing with the mind. I work on folks' mindset, help them get unstuck, celebrate progress, and create goals that they're inspired to do. That's how I do it.
Rather than mental health, fitness, because there are varying degrees of fitness. Some days we might be a little bit sharper than we are other days. It's good to practice a little bit of grace and let ourselves slide a little bit when we make mistakes. We talked briefly about crafting our language to stay focused on what matters most to you. That's a huge thing that I work with my clients on. Be mindful of the words that you use to talk to yourself. If you do that, it changes your reality. For example, if I say, my food should be delivered in 20 minutes, well, that's an absolute should. So now you're putting parameters on it versus replacing the should with it would be nice if my food was
Yep.
here in 20 minutes. So, yes, allowing that to give and take. Two totally different mindsets. One's
Mhm.
concrete and the other's more fluid, more adaptable.
Absolutely. Adaptability is key. 'Cause when it comes to our language, what we say, think, and write, I like to think of those as the ethereal macronutrients of the mind. The quality of those macronutrients will impact the quality of the body. The same thing with the words that we speak. The quality of the words that we're consuming, whether it's through reading, listening, conversation, whatever it is going to influence the quality of our thoughts. When we feed our mind quality words, we're going to have quality thoughts. When we feed our mind shit words, we're going to have shit thoughts. And so when we can become more aware, because that's the main key is awareness, we start to develop a way to think about our thinking. And when we think about our thinking, then we're not thinking about what other people are thinking of as well. And so we get to focus on the things that are important to us and create clarity rather than having uncertainty and ambiguity.
And that really reminds me of a quote, and I had to look it up because I wanted to give credit where credit's due. But it says, a man's character may be learned from the adjectives which he habitually uses in conversation.
Mhm.
Mark Twain.
Mhm.
And I work with people, and I used to be one of those individuals that every other word was a cuss word, and had a name for everybody. And when you stop and sit back and you're watching somebody do this, you're like, if that's what's coming out of your mouth, what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on in your brain, that hey, this is okay to use this kind of language and call people
Mhm.
these names. And a lot of males, that I've worked with throughout the years have some pretty interesting names for their female counterparts. And I always just come back at them. Well, if they're that and you're with them, what does that make you?
Sure.
If they are such a horrible person and you got all these different names for them, and you're choosing to spend time with this individual, what does that make you?
Mhm.
And they're like, oh. I said, just say their name. But
Fair.
yeah, but yeah, it's hugely important because, you know, like I said, just being mindful and focusing on, okay, well, what words am I using? How to, like, the one person that you talk to the most in the world is yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what language are you using?
Mhm.
Are you putting yourself down? Is it all negative? And then you're surprised that you have the negative thoughts and negative results. And the way I've always viewed it is, we're geared towards negativity. We have that negative human bias, and then we love to make assumptions and stuff. And you actually look in the grander scale of things, like how much we're actually in charge of is like next to nothing besides ourselves. I mean, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But we always assume the worst and always go in that negative direction. And I always tell people, like, I'm not a big gambler. I said, but if
Mhm.
I were to gamble, my favorite game, if I went to Vegas, would be the roulette wheel.
Nice.
One,
Same.
because red or black, you got a 50-50 shot of winning. That's the best odds you're going to get in Vegas.
Mhm.
Same thing with the positive, negative self-talk. I said, it's 50-50. It doesn't cost any more to think positive than it does to think negative. You have a 50-50 shot of
Totally.
whatever's troubling you to go good or bad.
Yeah.
And you don't have the control over it. So we might as well, think positive, and if the
Mhm.
worst happens, then hey, it happens. Rather than I'm gonna beat myself up for a week leading up to the
Mhm.
event, and then it turns out good. Like, well,
Mhm.
you've been beating yourself up for a week. I see it all the time
For
with
nothing.
the people I work with that go to court.
Mhm.
They'll make themselves sick for days and days and days leading up to the court date, and then it goes well, and then they're like, "Well, that's kind of silly for me to worry all that time." I said, "Yeah, because you had no control over all that.
Mhm.
You got no control over the judge and what kind of sentence you get. So why beat yourself up? I mean, just
Totally.
you know, be mindful and be present enough to be in the positive mindset rather than the negative, negative, negative."
Totally. Because when we get those feels where it's like an anticipation of, we're pulling the undesired future into the present to feel crappy in the moment rather than being present.
And
And then it's like,
I just hate the mentality. Well, it's best, if you're always thinking the worst and you're never disappointed. Yeah, you're constantly disappointed because
you're
that's all you're
constantly,
thinking.
yeah, you get exactly what you think. You get exactly what you think. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun.
So when you start working with a client, like day one, what's one of the first things? What's your first go to? Hey, this is our topic, or just say, hey, like typically my first session, it's all about trying to get to know the individual, kind of figure out why you're here, so on and so forth. But say lesson one, your go to, or does it change with each individual?
No, it's the same. And the first thing is awareness, because I get the folks that I work with to fill out a Google document that we both work off of, so that we're literally on the same page. And there's questions in there just to explore about relationships, where they want to go, what they've experienced, like things like that. So that's the first thing that we go into, is awareness of thinking about our thinking and asking ourselves questions. And then when it goes into the first session, we learn about translations. So how to take harmful language and turn it into positive language, or harmful words or stories into helpful ones. Or another way I like to put it, if we're putting it in an alchemy way, we're taking lead stories and turning them into golden stories. Yeah. So that would be translations. And the second thing as well, there's two actually. The second thing as well would be awareness around soft talk and solid talk. So it would be taking words like probably, might, could, should, possibly, like those words that create ambiguity. So an example would be, I might be able to make it to the party. I should be able to make it to the party for 5 p.m. Let's put a time in there. I'm probably going to make it to the party for 5 p.m. And I like to think that if you can follow up a statement with a question, then it's not solid enough. There's still unclear, or there's still ambiguity to it. So if you can say, I might go and make it to the party for 5 p.m. And the question is, well, are you or are you not making it to the party for 5 p.m.? So the question is not, or the statement is not solid enough. So what we'll do is we take out the soft talk and then it creates solid talk. So I'm going to make it to the party. I'm going to be at the party for 5 p.m. I will be at the party for 5 p.m. And then you're creating that clarity. And that way we are able to be more decisive, to be more clear with our thoughts, because it becomes really easy to start doing it internally, where you say to yourself, I might work on that email sequence today. No, and then I take out the might, I'm going to work on that email sequence today. So it takes away the ambiguity and makes it clear. And then with that clarity, it takes away a bit more of that resistance to doing the thing. So that's what those would be the two things. It would be translations, so how to move one to the other, and then also the difference between soft talk and solid talk.
Yeah, because you're removing that wiggle room where
Yep.
we're very good at talking ourselves out of things.
Hmm.
So if I'm using that soft talk, then I might make it over to the party or whatever, and versus I'm going to the party. But if I've been telling myself all week I might make it, then once the date arrives, then I've already well, I didn't say I was going. I was,
Hmm.
I said I might.
Totally.
Yeah. So, but that's huge because that like I said we are very good at deceiving ourselves,
Hmm.
and like you said, it's kind of like that self-fulfilling prophecy. If I'm just thinking negative and then negative things happen, then surprise, surprise. You
Yeah.
know, they
Yeah.
think negative, you do negative things, you get negative consequences versus positive consequences.
Totally. And it's funny because you said we're good at thinking ourselves out of things, and this would be a way of thinking ourselves into things.
Yeah. Yeah. Because especially when it comes to putting things off and whether it be work or other obligations,
Hmm.
we could easily, like I said, we do it unconsciously. We don't really. It's just we're so used to that language,
Yeah.
and
No.
I'm sure you never get any pushback on none of this, right? I'm sure people
Well,
are on board day one, right?
no. There's some resistance sometimes because the thing that people realize with this work is putting themselves in, it's the one of the main, not fears, the resistance to it is becoming the leader in their life. Because for the most part, people have a lot of, in their upbringing, they're being told what to think rather than how to think. And so when that happens, then we're just creating, we're not being able to make our own directions. We're not stepping into our own autonomy, and it creates a dependency on other people's opinions or perspectives in order to allow us permission to move forward. And when we can just give ourselves permission, I think it's a lot easier.
Oh, definitely. And you just hit on a word that I always like to bring up is autonomy.
Hmm.
And it's amazing the amount of people have no idea what that is. And then you have to
Yeah.
explain to them like autonomous. Like if a machine is autonomous, then it's able to function itself. It doesn't need any kind of outside things to
Yep.
make it run, to make it operate. It's operating independently.
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, that's so foreign to them. Like, hey, I'm doing this on my own. I have to make my own decisions. It's scary. What if I
Hmm.
make the wrong decision? And
I, and
why?
it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. We all do it. We all do it.
There's a, there's a quote that you just reminded me of there. I'll paraphrase how I remember it. It's, I would prefer the fear of making the wrong decision over the terror of making no decision. I think making no decision is way scarier than making a failed decision. At least with a fail, you know where you can prove.
Yeah, yeah. It's a learning.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a learning process. If I don't make that wrong decision, then I can't learn anything from it. I'm just sitting off to the side versus, hey, I gave it a shot. Now I know what not to do next time, so I can attack that event again and be better
Totally.
set for success versus, hey, I'm too scared to make that decision. I'm too scared to, you know, take that step forward. Whether it be something as big as, hey, I want to start my own business. I'm going to do my own thing. And that's scary for a lot of people because if you're like me and you've always worked for somebody and you just that steady paycheck is comforting and securing and to kind of step out and
Hmm.
do your own thing and be in charge of things, that's very scary. But trying and failing, how many business people, the millionaires have failed? Every one of them.
Yeah.
Every
I
one
think
of
the average is they've a majority of billionaires have gone bankrupt 2 times before making their billion.
them.
Something like that.
Yeah. And what do? They learn from their past mistakes. As I'll never be a billionaire by any stretch of the imagination, but I make mistakes every day. And the side of to me, a side of a mature person is being able to learn from those past mistakes rather than continually do it's
Yeah.
definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different result.
Hmm.
And man, I've worked tons of those individuals. It's like you're back in jail. All right. What's your game plan this time? Nothing. The exact same
Hmm.
thing when I go right back out and I come right back in. It's like, all right.
Yes.
Good luck
I
with that.
I heard a comedian tell a joke before, and he started the skit with, I used to make fun of millennials, and then I looked it up and turned out I was a millennial, so I make fun of millennials less often now. And then he went to the other part. He's like, so during my exploration of a millennial, some of the characteristics that came up was uh, millennials have a solid self awareness. They just know what's going on with them at all times. They can explain it in whatever way. And so he was telling a story of when he went to a buddy of his friends, or he went to the bar for a buddy's birthday. And he was chatting with this one fella that was there. And they're just having a cool conversation. And then the fella said, you know what? I have I have pretty severe anxiety. Like it's pretty cool that I'm out here. And the comedian said, oh, cool. So what is it that you're doing for your anxiety? And the fella responded, oh, nothing. I'm letting you know so you can work around it.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, there's a individual where I work and a client, if you will, where I work,
Mhm.
and you can say anything. The first thing out of their mouth is "I can't," like automatic. It's like it's just built in. It's like no matter what you say,
Very long.
her the her their mentality is automatically, I gotta find a reason why I can't do this.
Mhm.
And and just hearing that, it's just like, man, like you're gonna have a very, very rough life if
Yep.
you continue to have that mindset. And and it's somewhat controversial, I guess. Everything's controversial these days, but you know, I'm a firm believer in that over the past few years, I've definitely seen a change. And in the victim mindset is somehow popular. It's cool to be a victim.
It's trendy.
And yeah,
I
it's
agree with you.
trendy to be a victim, and it's really hard to get people away from that. I mean, because that's that victimhood. That's that's their crutch. That's their baby. That's the thing they lean on the most.
Mhm.
And how would you work with somebody that just has that, just coming in out the door, just victim mentality? Everybody's out to get me. Everything's rigged. I can, I can,
Mhm.
I can't. How would you work to change that language?
I would start with the definition I share with folks for victim mentality. And the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait in which a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of other people's actions, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So I like to start with that definition so that people have an idea of what a victim mentality looks like. Because when we know what a victim mentality looks like, we can see what a victor mentality looks. What's a winning mentality look like? And and so when I introduce that introduction, what I find, or with that definition, what I find is that then they start thinking about if they are a victim or if they're just behaving as a victim. And then we can explore things along those lines. Because many people or many folks will have a v actually, I'll put a couple different themes. So, for example, someone will hold a victim mentality until it no longer serves them. Because people may have a victim mentality because they could get benefits, they can get affirmation, they can get hugs. They just can whatever they receive, it's encouraging the victim mentality. And so, because we live in a time where it's trendy to be a victim, it's less common for people to celebrate each other's wins. So I think that it's two components where right now, I think that there's more people becoming more positive, and I think that people are developing their own self-awareness and their self-image, like what they believe of themselves, and then they're improving themselves. I think we're in a really cool time where I recognize that happening. So I think that in my hope, it goes from trendy to being a victim to trendy to being a victor. And that way we have more people celebrating each other and celebrating each other's wins and supporting rather than trying to pull each other down like crabs in a bucket. Because that's what the victim mentality does. And if you look at it, when we feel more abundance in our life, oftentimes this is what I perceive. Uh, we spend less time with more people. We have a handful of individuals because our like cup's full. We're not trying to seep things from other people to fill our cup. Because what you'll see in the victim mentalities, like in the worst degree, is that it's community based. So if you think of it like an energy rippling out from the body, you can have a 5 foot radius of good vibes, and you don't need very many people there because everyone's contributing. When you look at the other part, you'll see something like 50 people. They'll be low energy and they're steeping like energy vampires to be able to get whatever they want. And then another thing, a client of mine actually said this one, and it was so funny. I'm like, I'm going to say this forever. Some people also have a shame kink. They just like to shit on themselves.
Mhm.
And so the common denominator for each individual would be, as long as they have a sincere desire to make changes, they have an openness and curiosity towards exploration, and they're okay with testing their pain threshold and comfort zone, then they're going to be able to do whatever they want. And then it's just making the decision to do so.
Yeah, and like you said, the old saying is true. Misery loves company.
Mm,
And if
mhm.
if you're just in that victim mentality and just I can't, you're gonna surround yourself with people who feed into that. They have the same, like you said, like energy vampires, which makes me think of what we do in the shadows.
Yeah, dude, that
That is
was
that is the best.
hilarious. That
That
was
that
so funny.
yeah.
I love
That
go ahead. Sorry.
I
Yeah.
was no, I said that is the best definition of a
Well,
energy vampire. Colin Robinson.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. That was so good.
yeah, yeah. I haven't. I know this is their final season. I'm a few episodes behind. Me and my wife, we like to watch that show, but yeah, that show's a trip. If you've never seen it, there's a there's a, there's a specific breed of vampire that just drains people of their energy, and the
Yeah.
guy that plays this person is just like the most boring guy at your office that just drones on about nothing. And that's how he feeds. He doesn't feed on blood, he feeds on your energy. So, yeah, it's an interesting character. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is draining to be around somebody like that, that has that victim mentality, and especially if you're not feeding into that, it's just like, like you're just a bummer. I'm not gonna hang around with you, you know. Go find your own people, and
Okay.
that's a lot of clients I work with, especially when you're dealing with alcohol, drugs, things of that nature. Is like, well, when you get sober, like you're gonna lose the very vast majority, if not all, your friends,
Mm,
because y'all are just in that community, feeding off each other, feeding off the addiction, and they're not gonna like sober you. They're not gonna like to hang around with you. So you might as well
mm.
brace yourself for that. So that's what's coming.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that autonomy, that being able to function independently is huge because, yeah, you're going to get pat on the backs when you're 2 months sober, 3 months sober, hell, maybe even six. But what happens when you stop getting those pats on the back saying, "Hey, good job, you're doing great"?
Mhm.
People got their own things going on in their lives. They're not there to be your cheerleader. So, what
Yep.
do you do when that cheering stops? Do you keep going down the road of sobriety, or you just say, F it. I'm not getting any attention, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
go back and hang out with my old buddies.
Yeah. 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 I think that's something I think is really cool, or something that's important is with going from having something to not having something, preparing for who you want to be and who you want to spend time with after that point. Cause it's legit less cause I don't drink nowadays. However, when I was drinking, there was more opportunity to spend time and drink with people. Now
Yeah.
I'm a lot more chill and I spend time. I still go and do stuff. Like I don't mind going to a bar and I'll just have a non-alcoholic beer. And it's less parties. There's less parties I'm being invited to,
Mhm,
which is cool. I
mhm.
don't mind that at all.
Yeah, and I always, majority or pretty much all my clients that I work with, it's like one of the main things that I really want them to work on is learning to love themselves. to forgive themselves and learning to forgive others, because to me, that's the best basis to move forward in life. Okay, well, one, do I love myself? And knee-jerk reaction, yeah, I love myself. Do I really?
Mm.
Like, like me, I could stand to lose a few pounds. Okay, do I love myself when I'm scarfing down a whole pizza? Not really, because I'm kind of doing some damage there. Learning to forgive myself. Okay, am I able to forgive myself for eating that whole damn pizza? Or I want to beat myself up for weeks and weeks and weeks. Hey, I shouldn't have ate so much pizza and not do anything about it.
Mhm.
And learning to just let the baggage go of, hey, we've all been victims. We've all been wronged. We all have had bad things happen to us.
Mhm.
But do I dwell on it, or do I just let it go and move on? And I was working with an individual, or trying to work with this individual, and we didn't even get through the assessment consultation, and he was just like, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm done." Because I brought this crazy idea to him. I was like, "Well," I said, "one thing that we're probably going to talk about is learning to forgive other people." And he's like, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that." I said, "Well," I said,
Hmm.
if you want to move forward, I said, I hate to break this to you. I said, that person that you're holding all this anger towards, they're sleeping just fine at night. You're
Totally.
you're the only one holding on to this." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Well, if we were talking about stuff like that, well, I can't work with you." I was like, "Okay, good luck." Like I said, you're coming to me. I'm not coming to you. So best of luck to you. Holding on to that resentment, that anger.
Totally. Well, they're not even holding on to it. They're just creating it in my thoughts. Because in my mind, when someone, or I'll put it for myself, that way it's just there. For myself, something that was an aha moment was the realization that if I have a feeling about a past event, and let's say it does include a person, and I still feel it in the future, like in the present moment, whereas it could be years back, then they still have the power over me. They haven't done anything. I'm doing everything to myself at that point. And when I think that forgiveness is, I don't even think it's necessary to forgive. I think it's the highest priority to let go. And then forgiveness, maybe that can happen. However, I think it's like, it definitely adds and makes it a lot easier to be able to give up something that is just creating turmoil. Even if it's and I'll say, like, even from my experiences that have been heavy duty, it's been easier to let go of them rather than be like, oh, I remember when I was this age and so did this thing to me. It makes it a lot simpler to just be free of it. And it's so much smoother, in my opinion, because then we're not just, it's the way I see it is that if I'm pulling something from the past, I'm pulling on like chains with big boulders at the end. I'm trying to go into the future and I'm just dragging this thing when I don't need to. I can actually just let go at any point in time. However, I just have the story is like, I have to take it with me. It's like, I don't want to take it with me. Who are you fooling? It's craziness.
Yeah, because if, say, my brother did me wrong 20 years ago, and today, like you said, I'm having a physical and emotional response to something that happened 20 years ago. It's not happening 20 years ago. It's happening today. So like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I've been carrying that for 20 years, and it's, like that I kind of joke around with is in my clients. It's like, it's kind of like, say if you loan your buddy that you've known for your entire life $20 and they don't pay you back. So now you're just like, I'm done with that individual, you know, like a lifetime friendship over $20. And I've seen people do that. And it's like, well, number one, never lend money that you can't lose. If you lend money and get
Yeah.
it back, it's a gift. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you may as well just, if I'm lending you money, I don't expect to get it back. If I get it back, it's a gift. But if I can't afford to lose that money, I shouldn't be lending it, even though we might be buddies, because
I think that's reasonable, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And like I said, I've seen people just ruin relationships that they've had for many years over just the most trivial, small things. And they just hang on to it for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Um, and,
Just
and,
like let
and
go.
yeah, and use, tragic events, like, so we talk about that victim mentality.
Mhm.
I was working with the individual in his 50s. He might have been in his 60s. He's an older gentleman, still struggling with drug abuse and whatnot. And he could pinpoint, why he is. I said, well, okay, well, if you got that kind of insight, hey, it's gonna make my job a lot easier. All right, let's go.
That's
He's like,
cool.
he's like, when my mom passed away. I said, okay. I said, when did she pass away? 1985. I'm like, dude. Okay. I said, well, you understand, hey, that's if a tragic event. My mom passed away years ago, and definitely tragic. But if that's the excuse you're using for using 30 something years later, might need to work on some things here.
Yeah. I would, if I was in his position, I would probably go with an Eminem line. It would be, it'd be like, well, I would be addicted to drugs if they didn't make them so tasty.
Yeah, yeah, and I always love the conspiracy theorist drug addict,
Oh yeah.
and like, oh well, it's the government putting it in our communities and this, that, and other. I said, well, if you know that that's what they're doing, then don't do it. Use it. Oh, they're trying to kill us and all this. Well, if you're in on the secret, then why are you continually using the thing that you think that they're doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, be a conspiracy theorist. Cling on to that. If that's what keeps you sober and you think that, hey, it's poison, they're out to get us, hey,
If it
have
works,
that
it works.
mentality. If it works, it
Yeah.
works. But I always love that mentality because, like I said, you name it, I've heard it in my decade plus worked in this field. Man, but yeah, I always love the conspiracy theorist addict. It's like, all right. It's like let's rewind. Okay, let me repeat your exact words and let's break this down.
Yeah.
Like, does this make
Mm.
sense to you? Does it make sense? Yeah, because anytime like when we're talking or if we're in a aroused emotional states, we really can't hear the words we're saying. We're just saying them because
Yep.
it's all running off emotion. And then when you actually like write it down and go, okay, read this back to me. Like, does it make sense to you?
Yeah.
You know? All right. So now let's try to work on that.
Nice. I I go about a similar process where I get them to write it out, and then, well, I get them to write it out, then I get them to read it out, then I get them to read it slower, then I get them to read and breathe it. So at every period, I'll get them to have and that's been really good with like death stories, for example, like in the context of the fellow that you mentioned. Those have been really good, and being able to, another form that I did was another theme was letter writing as well. So be writing a letter to your mom of the things that you didn't say that you didn't get to say that you want to say, and then go through the same process because the brain can't tell the difference between thoughts and reality. It's just information. And something else that you said too, is when you're saying some, when we're in an upregulated state, we'll just like blurt out whatever their thoughts are. There's a word for that. It's a amygdala hijack. It's
Hmm.
called an amygdala hijack. So that's where our conscious executive function is down, and it's just all
Hmm.
animal being,
Mhm.
animal reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole Dr. Siegel, flipping your lid, and you get the amygdala, you got the prefrontal cortex, and
Mm.
then,
Oh,
uh,
that's, yeah. And then the other
yeah,
parts.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And it's just an easy visual way to show people, say, like this right here, I did a
The
train.
spine.
Yeah, and I did what was it? This guy, he was like some Harvard PhD dude. And the way he broke it down was, okay, he said, your amygdala right here, he said, that's your smoke detector. And says, hey, something's going on and something, like I said, like you said, our brain does not know the difference between, am I getting physically attacked or am I getting verbally attacked? All I know is, hey, I got all these chemicals flowing through my body, cortisone, adrenaline, all this stuff, and then it sounds the alarm. So, the prefrontal cortex, that's our, like I said, the executive functions, stuff like that. That what
Mm,
separates us from the animals and allows us to be logical. So
yeah.
when that smoke alarm goes off, we flip our lid. So now we're operating on that primal part of the brain, that fight, flight,
Mm,
freeze, and then you know, game on, and I've read, some studies say that, once we're in that fight, flight, or freeze, we have the mental capability of a small child. We
I can see
do,
that.
we do childish things. It's like if I'm going out there and getting drunk or whatever, guess what? I'm operating with my lid flipped and I'm
Hmm.
operating on those primal things. Hey, this feels good. Hey, game on. And then then you sober up and you're going, why did I do that? That was stupid. Like, why did I
Yeah,
say that? Or who is this person next to me? Like, I would have done that if I had been sober.
yes, totally.
Yeah, those sort of things. So, but allowing yourself to like allow that lid to close and being very mindful of your body and knowing when you're in that, enhanced emotional arousal state and that fire, that smoke alarm's going off because whether that smoke's somebody's attacking me or that smoke is just somebody saying something I don't like, that smoke alarm's
Oh,
gonna go off.
it could be just our thoughts as well, because we could be in a totally cool set and setting, and then
Yeah.
we feel that smoke alarm go off, and then we could be like, then we think about the thing. It's like, okay, it's an inside thing. Like this is the thing that's getting me wound up.
Yeah, yeah, and being like I said, and it's a hippy dippy word, mindfulness and all that, but no, it's being in touch with who you are. I know that I remember distinctly one time I came home from work and my wife knows, come home from work, just kind of give me a few minutes to kind of decompress and just kind of, I work, uh, typically about an hour away from where I live. So my process to kind of decompress, because when you deal with individuals and all their problems for 8 hours a day, and it gets to be a bit much. So my go-to is I very seldom listen to the radio. I'll turn on a podcast. Usually it's like a comedy podcast or something that get me thinking or laughing, or it might be like some of those true crime podcasts or whatever.
Cool.
And it kind of helps me kind of decompress. Then when I get home, just give me a few minutes to kind of decompress. And I remember coming home one day and I'm still kind of heightened from work or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm just trying to chill on the couch, and wife comes in and there's some kind of drama going on with her family and stuff. And I just, like I said, that smoke alarm went off and these words came out of my mouth and they never did again after this.
So fair.
And she was saying something about her sister and her boyfriend at the time, no, now her husband. And I was just shook my head and I was like, I don't care. Oof,
Mm.
oof. Needless to say, yeah, I had to do a lot of backpedaling about that because I was in,
Yeah.
because I was in that state of just like, my lid's flipped. I'm not thinking about what I say. And then and it's kind of like one of those cartoons where, you say a word and it comes out and you just want to grab it
Mm.
and like put it in your
Mm.
pocket. But that's not reality. Once it's
Yeah.
out there,
Yeah.
and there ain't no taking it back. And
Mm.
so from that point forward, I kind of know, okay, well, when I'm feeling that way, I can say, hey, give me a few minutes. I was like, there's something going on. I don't know exactly what it is. Probably something from work. I just need to process it. Just need to chill for a little bit. Then, hey, let's talk
Nice.
versus just, just,
Yeah.
um, vomiting nonsense that I'll later regret.
Yeah. Yeah, that's legit. Man.
I said, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, and it's definitely a learning process, and learning, you know, to change the language, that you speak to yourself, learning these techniques. And I've got multiple degrees and all kinds of trainings and stuff. I still make mistakes. I'm tons of education in this field, and I still make mistakes in my personal life. But the question is, do I learn from it? Yes. But most of us, we're not educated in these fields, and we don't know these little techniques and tricks to kind of get us on the right track. That's why, they come to people like you and me to try to work on these things and
Or
allowing them to realize, hey, we're human. We're imperfect. There's no perfect person out there. We're going to make mistakes, but to learn from those mistakes is huge.
forward. And you know what? Well, I guess because learning from mistakes is problem solving. And
Mhm.
a definition I liked for intelligence that I heard recently was intelligence is one's ability to solve problems. So the more problems we solve, the more lessons we learn, the more problems we solve, the more intelligent we become as a side effect.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I've done multiple podcasts on just emotional intelligence. Most people don't know what that is, and it's huge. If you want to be successful in life, having that emotional intelligence is huge. You might be the smartest person to walk through the door on a job, but if you can't get along with people, if you can't regulate your emotions, you're probably not going to be successful.
Mhm.
And they're finding that your IQ might be through the roof, but if you don't have people skills, then I can't hire you to sell cars or whatever it is, or interact with other people, even though you might be brilliant.
Mhm.
And if you're constantly flying off the handle, I can't have that in my business. So
No.
sorry, you might be book smart, whatever, but hey, the emotional intelligence is not there. So I always tell people, like, yeah, you might not have the degrees or whatever, but if you got work ethic, emotional intelligence, you're off to a very good start over the person that
Totally.
has the education but lacks the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree with
Okay.
that.
All righty. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. It's been about roughly an hour,
Right on.
so I'll let you your final thoughts. If somebody wants to reach out and contact you and wants your services, wants to learn more about the
Yeah.
NSLE, where do they find you?
Easiest place is clarityconsultant.ca. And if it doesn't work, www.clarityconsultant.ca. Both should work at this point. And if they want to have a conversation with me, my social platforms are Dapperdude Kyle, DapperDudeKyle. If you want to send me a message, Instagram is my fastest response time.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being on, Kyle. It's a great conversation. I could talk to you for another couple hours easily. Very personable, knowledgeable individual. That's people I like to hang out with.
Appreciate
But
it.
yeah, you are up in Canada, correct?
I am Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay, way over there. All right.
Winter tundra. I'm pretty north.
Yeah. I've been to Canada. It's a lovely country.
Hmm.
Love to go back. Well, thank you so much for being on.